Hey, Elaine.
Hello.
So you know how we do show discussions on the podcast
I
quite
do.
often?
Yeah, I have been here for the past 3 years, yeah.
Can we do a household discussion?
A discussion about the house?
More about our finances and how we use them.
Okay. I'm not sure this is a discussion that's for the podcast, but come on, let's go with it.
I have a line in the sand moment.
Oh, is it to do with... But it's to do with television, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's to do with television, right. So what do you not want to pay for?
I want to say fuck Disney Plus.
Oh, no. Don't say that. They might sponsor us one day.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, it
we're
is
not
unlikely.
offering sponsorships. I mean, if anyone wants to.
Disney Plus will be fine.
Yeah.
No, why? I'm watching things on Disney Plus.
It's going up to $10.99 a month.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
What is it at the moment?
$8.99 a month.
Just shows how
It
much I know
launched at
about our household
$5.99 a
finances.
month.
So it launched at $5.99,
Like at the start of COVID.
right? Which is fair enough. Yeah, $8.99. You kind of go, okay, it's still under a tenner.
Yeah, it feels like a big jump.
It's £11 a month.
I mean, we don't go out much.
True.
But it just seems like a huge jump. And I'm happy to just pick and choose. Because at the minute, we just have these and it's just kind of, you forget about them. And if you don't watch anything for a month,
Yes.
like it's kind of low enough to ignore.
Yeah.
I feel this is the barrier that's going to get a lot of people and they're just going to go to, because we've got a lot of streaming services
We've
as
got
well.
all the streaming services. Yes.
We don't have Shudder. I think that's...
No, but okay. I was thinking about I wouldn't. It's not a diss on Shudder, but that I wouldn't have thought of that as like a main one. You know, most people aren't like. If I say to my mates, "Oh, Disney Plus," they'll know what I'm talking about. If I say Shudder, the majority of them will not know what that is.
Depends which mates.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The majority of them will.
Yeah.
Many people would, but the majority, my average friend on the street will not know who Shudder is.
Are we naming who your average friend on the street
No, we're
is?
not. Right. Oh, okay. Because one of the shows that I'm going to talk about is on Disney Plus that I'm watching at the moment. I'm thinking of the shows that which will be coming up in my top 10 TV shows of the year, and a number of them were on Disney Plus. But you're absolutely right. It depends how much you use it, isn't it? So if something like that comes on and everyone's talking about it, you'd subscribe to watch it, wouldn't you?
Well, I'm happy to get it tactically. I think there's no point as getting everything at once. I think, like, at the start of a month, we have a look and we choose which, maybe two, pick one each for the thing, and just binge whatever we want from there for the month.
Okay.
And then the next month, we get something else.
Yeah,
Shudder,
that's
maybe.
interesting.
Which apparently the average man on the street doesn't know about.
Average friend on the street, Mark. Average friend.
I think every man on the street is my friend.
I wonder how I've missed this, because I didn't see that Disney Plus had gone up
Well,
in
because
price.
the emails come to me, so...
Yeah, but just generally, it kind of floats around a bit. People have these sorts of reactions, on the social medias.
Yeah,
And I've just missed it.
I'm
But-
just really... It used to be that, like, Netflix was £4, and I don't know how much... Well, we don't pay for Netflix now because we get it free with Sky. But it seems like they're all sneaking up, and I'm sorry that Disney need the money because,
So desperate.
they've took a bath on a few films recently, more to come. But, yeah, I just think...
It is an interesting point that you were making about this. When you get to a price point, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I find the same thing with subscriptions to podcasts. Because I have subscribed myself to a podcast recently, like their additional.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a Patreon, but it's a monthly subscription which gets you extra things. We pay for Patreon for various podcasts, and there's something about, like you say, there's a line in the sand, isn't there, of where you go to when you're paying for that additional content.
Yeah.
That even as people who create a podcast, even I still have that moment where I go, ooh, it's more than, X amount. Like the one that I've just subscribed to recently is $2.99 a month, which for me is like, I can't get a coffee for $2.99 in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
So that makes it, £3 a month for great content, very happy to support. But I did see something recently where people were asking, how much would you pay? And the prices did not start at $2.99. The prices started at, would you pay 10 to 15, 15 to 20? And automatically my brain just went, oh, no, too high. Whereas if you start a little bit lower...
Yeah.
But there is an argument about if you're making something and putting it out in the world, devaluing that. I have no problem with paying for something that I want to support. I think the price has to be right, and it's not. We don't have enough disposable income to just blindly subscribe to everything we want to support. So we have to make decisions. Your argument on this is Disney.
Yeah.
So
yes, yeah. I mean, like, do you remember when? Do you remember when the Empire? Do you remember when Empire launched their spoiler podcast?
Yes,
and
the spoiler special podcast.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember what the price was, but it was sufficient that we thought, ooh. And then they later came back and tweaked it down a bit to a price which was right. There is definitely a price, and I think it's very tough to find that. And
it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think about how much we pay for that because we still subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's the same company, but Pilot TV. So I'm paying $2.99 for the Plus version of Pilot TV. And I don't even feel that coming out of the and I don't even think about it now.
Yeah.
I don't even think about the fact I'm paying it, and I don't think about the fact that I'm paying for like the Empire spoiler special because we decided to go for it at that price, and then that was it. You know, it's interesting how your brain just automatically go, oh well, that's that now.
Yeah, and I think it is the fact it's gone past £10. Just makes me think.
Yeah, psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there are people who I would pay to support. Like, there are podcasts I listen to rarely, but I enjoy the people who do them, and I don't not listen to them enough to cancel my Patreon towards them. Like, I like to support them in what they do because I enjoy their overall product. But fucking hell, like, just because you've took a bath on the Marvels, it's not. I don't see that. I realise, you've got shareholders to pay, but
So, well, Mark, I support your financial decision.
Well, that's nice.
For the household.
Brilliant.
And thank you for this very interesting discussion on the podcast we will pay for, the podcast we won't pay for, and the television that we definitely won't pay more than a tenner for.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got. I mean, I've got a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a little bit as well.
I've got a couple of TV shows.
How the podcast works, really. Isn't
I
it?
have got the most obscure TV thing we've ever done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
More so than the Cat Burglar.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So did most people.
So yeah, I've got a couple of TV shows, and I've got a film.
I've got a few films. I've got 2 TV shows. Should we get into TV?
Let's do TV.
Watching television.
How many TV shows have you got?
I've got 2. I have got a historical drama and I've got a crime drama.
Okay.
I'm on brand.
Can I start off with my really obscure thing?
Go on then.
So I'm going to review the most obscure thing that we've ever done, which is Superfan, which is a documentary that no one will be able to watch unless you subscribe to the WWE network. It says how much I enjoyed this, the fact that I feel the need to talk about this.
Go on then.
So Superfan is a documentary. It was filmed a couple of years ago. They released a trailer, but then there was a lot of management changes in WWE at the time, and it got put on the back shelf, and they launched it without any fanfare a couple of months ago. Someone just noticed it had been put on there. It's the story of Vladimir Abuzaid, I think that's how it's pronounced, who is a guy who, from first watching wrestling in the late 80s, early 90s, was just in the background, in the crowd. Every week, he had a front row ticket to Madison Square Gardens.
Which is expensive.
Just in the crowd.
Yeah.
And no one knew how he got it. No one knew what he was doing there. And he's not the only person who does this. There is, certainly when ECW became big in the mid-90s, it was a smaller venue, and there were people who were always in the same spot. There was a guy who looked like, what's the guitarist from Faith No More called?
Really? Really? I mean, I think when I was like 19, I would have remembered that because I was, to coin a phrase, riding in cars with boys who played Faith No More on their cassette player.
Jim Martin.
Great.
I had James Martin in my head, and I was like, no,
And then
he
we go
does
to
Saturday
James-
Kitchen, or
I'm
whatever
now
it
thinking
is.
of James Hetfield, but now
Yeah.
we're going off to Metallica.
So yeah, he was a guy who had big long hair, looked a bit like Howard Stern, I guess, would be the other person who he looked like. There was a guy who always wore a hat, like a straw hat.
Obviously.
You just knew them. But this guy was always at Madison Square Gardens whenever they were there, always in the front row, and occasionally you saw like wrestlers like acknowledge him. But it's only since the internet came about that people knew him as Vladimir, and people who go know Vladimir. And obviously he's a Haitian immigrant to America. No one knows anything really about him, and this doesn't reveal that much because he's just a normal person. But it talks about how he used to get tickets. He's got a job, so it doesn't go into what. I'm dying to know how he can get front row tickets all the time.
So it doesn't reveal that.
No, I mean he used to. So I mean he doesn't necessarily get front row tickets now. He used to in the 80s because he used to. Wrestling is this guy's life, and so he used to get up and queue all night just to get the first tickets. And it's quite interesting. There's a guy who's interviewed one of his friends who sat next to him all the time. But because Vladimir is tall and really ripped, like he's really like spindly, I would say, like strong, and he's got these funny glasses, like these like 80s glasses, I guess you'd say, like with the thin rim and very big. He just stood out, so you just noticed him all the time. But then he used to go to like. He knew where the wrestlers were staying when they were in New York, so he used to go and hang out with them in the bars. So, yeah. And it's only a 45-minute documentary. It covers him in that. But then, clearly, when they were interviewing him, COVID hit. It's one of the best documentaries talking and covering how it felt during COVID. Because this is someone who lost people close to him as part of it. And he's in tears at the time. But when he's talking about it, and he's suffered really bad mental health as part of the lockdown, he couldn't do what he wanted. This is a guy whose life is wrestling, and it doesn't matter what it is. He's just absolutely passionate about certain things, and that was taken away from him. He lost the person who was closest to him, his mother, and it is absolutely heartbreaking, but a really, really interesting document of how it was to live in the years of 2020 and 2021. No one else who's listening to this is going to watch this, so I'm going to leave it there.
Oh, they might do. I know you'd have to have a subscription to
Yeah.
the WWE Network, but I wonder if it's going to be available elsewhere.
I suspect not. I mean, this
Okay.
has been very much, I think,
That's a shame.
yeah, but this is such a good I mean, I'll put it on for you because I think you might get a lot out of it. It's really tough to watch at some points, as it should be for something who's gone through this level of this trauma at these events. But it ends really positively. People get in contact with him, and like, yeah, it's
Well, we
really
know
really
sort of
interesting.
wrestling came back because
Yes.
you've been to see quite a lot of wrestling, and we've seen how things have progressed since the lockdowns have been lifted. But I think it sounds to me like it's, like you've said, it's a really important document of what happens when community is lost.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
his version of community, and we could all have, like, our version of community might be going to the cinema by ourselves.
Yes.
That could be our level.
And I
you
felt
know.
lost like without those times. I mean, I remember walking to see the first film I saw when the world reopened, which was the Mortal Kombat film that was remade, and getting halfway there and realizing I'd left my mask at home and thinking, oh shit, they might not let me in.
Yeah.
And this was so important to me to build up to that. And I came and they were like, oh no, we've got some here for you to use. So that was, but yeah, it was, it's a brilliant piece of work. It's only 45 minutes long. I wish that this was available in a different method, because I think this could be something. It might just be that I've always wondered who this guy is that's in the background that I've seen.
I've seen Sky documentaries on less than this.
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And it's a really, really brilliantly put together document of how it was during COVID.
which would have been unexpected, I suppose, at the time.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Anyway,
How do I move on from that? What do you want me to do first? Do you want The Crown or do you want Shetland?
let's do The Crown.
Okay. So we are now in the 6th and final series. I almost said season then, and then I thought, nope, too American. So 6th and final series of The Crown, which is essentially the story of the modern royals, from Queen Elizabeth II's ascension to the throne all the way through to, at this point, where they're in the 6th season, we're getting the death of Princess Diana, and we're also getting sort of like Kate and William meeting each other. They've split this final series into 2 parts.
Because there's a fair bit between those 2 events.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've already had part 1. Part 1 came out in November. That's 4 episodes, and essentially it's entirely Diana, and it's the last days of Diana. So you are watching in minute detail what Diana is doing in the run-up to her death. And then the last episode ends essentially where you get to in Peter Morgan's other exploration of the royals, which was The Queen, the film with Helen Mirren, which looked at what happened in the aftermath of Diana's death.
I was about to say that sounds very very familiar, this story.
Yeah, so the last episode is essentially a truncated version of The Queen.
So does Michael Sheen play Tony Blair?
You know what? Bertie Carvel plays Tony Blair, and actually he does it really well, because you're only ever thinking of Michael Sheen, aren't you? Well, you think of Michael Sheen playing everyone now. I mean, who can Michael Sheen not play? But yeah, Bertie Carvel, who was the baddie in you know
Dr.
what I'm
Foster,
talking about,
yeah.
Dr. Foster.
Yeah, I know what
the
Bertie
baddie.
Carvel is,
You know,
yeah.
the baddie husband.
I thought he was a sympathetic
He
one in
has-
that show.
He has some amazing poofed up hair in this, and he has some rather cringeworthy conversations with her Madge. But yeah, if we backtrack, I have absolutely loved The Crown in its early incarnations. I remember waxing lyrical to your parents about it and essentially saying, look, you know, you're getting to go back in time, you're learning about young Prince Philip, you're learning about young Princess Anne, it's not just about the royal, it is called The Crown, because you're then getting into the political machinations as well, the different prime ministers that came along, the changes in culture, and, you know, the advent of television, some really, really interesting explorations of British life, to be honest with you, and our culture. There's a stunningly terrible, and I mean that not terrible as a criticism, but terrible as heartbreaking recreation of the Aberfan disaster in one of the early series, which I thought was incredibly well done in recreating what happened, and the Queen then going and meeting the victims of that disaster, and also how that disaster came about, but also just raising awareness for people who might not have known what had happened.
So I'd never heard of Aberfan before you mentioned it to me in this show.
And it's an awful, awful, awful thing. And the show depicts it as being as awful as it is, quite rightly. But I also thought, well, I'm pleased that people's awareness was raised about it. So it's doing lots of different things, The Crown, or at least it was in its early series. Here's my big and.
Yeah.
This latest series, I just cannot get on board with. First of all, we've now moved towards the Diana show, which I know was obviously a massive thing within the royal family. Even when she was divorced from Prince Charles, as he then was, you know, she was front page news. Press were always, you know, after her. Whatever she did, you know, it made headlines. Wherever she was, they followed her. So, of course, they're going to look at Diana. But Diana isn't the only royal, and Diana isn't the crown. Queen Elizabeth barely gets a look in. Prince Philip's popping up, and he's played by Jonathan Pryce at this point. Every now and again, he pops up to say something a bit grumpy, and then he goes away again. All the nuance...
Could have been worse.
Yeah, I know. All the nuance that Matt Smith, who played him as sort of like an earlier version...
Yeah.
Put into him, and all that characterization has gone. And it's the same with the Queen. The Queen is just grumpy and angry and sharp, and you never see her smiling. You never see any sort of warmth around her. Princess Margaret sort of like flitting around in the background, and she has such an interesting life. And people like Princess Anne, for example, who's one of the hardest working royals, with a lot about her. She got a lot more in earlier series. Now she sort of just says a bit of like, she does a bit of a jolly what ho, oh, let's all go out riding.
I mean, that's kind of how Princess Anne is in the public now. I mean, she keeps herself to herself, I think.
I know, but I think the beauty of the show was that you got to see not necessarily the private life and the personal life, but you got to see the royals as three-dimensional people.
So I'm going to pull you up here because a lot through this description you've mentioned it's a document, it's showing things. My problem with The Crown is, and this is why I've never been interested in it, is that I don't think it is a document. This is a fictional TV show
it is. Yeah.
based on reality. And I think
you're right.
subconsciously my issue is I got into this and I'm not sure what bits are true and which bits are just made up by someone.
All I can say is that I know that in the earlier series, of course, there will be some historical inaccuracies, but I felt that there was a lot more put into the veracity of what was being done, and a lot more put into the characterization and understanding the people.
I have issues. I have issues with this, and we've seen this with things around COVID and things like that, where there've been things based on the truth. I think there was one about Boris Johnson, and for some reason I just really dislike them because I feel that whatever they say can quite often become gospel, even though it's based on speculation.
Yes.
And make a program slagging off Boris Johnson if you want. I'll give you some lines if you really want. But I really have a problem, and I don't quite understand why I draw a line here and not with other TV shows or anything like that. But these semi-true, it might have happened like this thing, I just can't get into it.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think in the past what I've done is I've had a little look to see what has happened. I've maybe seen that certain things that might have been a year out, or someone who's at an event had died a few months before. It has never... I just feel it's taken a massive, massive leap this series, and it's because we don't know what happened in those final days with Diana and someone who gets missed out of this a lot and who did also die, but Dodie fired.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened between them because they were alone when they were having those conversations. What I find really, really difficult in this series is that there are full conversations. There are and these things have to be imagined because no one knows. It's not like 20 or 30 years have passed and maybe some people have died and then ladies in waiting have said certain things, or people who were in the room have then felt able to say, well, I was actually there, I was a private secretary and I was there and I saw the letters, and we've had maybe books that have been written about these things. In this instance, these two people were alone in Paris and no one else was in the room. So when I am seeing events occurring on screen, then I just it's so unbelievable to me that would have taken place.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're preaching to the choir. You really are with me on this. I mean, I'm surprised that there hasn't. I mean, I've not read much. I'm not. Has there been much backlash on this? Because I think
huge. Yeah, absolutely huge.
Like the whole thing doesn't interest me at all. But just from a thing going over the death of two people.
Well, three.
Of course.
If you count the show, which obviously it doesn't get much of a look in either.
I wasn't sure whether Henry Paul had died or
Yes,
not. I was
yeah.
trying to remember myself. The death of 3 people. If you want to talk about how the Queen dealt with something that Prince Philip has done, it's not for me. But if clearly you're making a lot of money out of it, and so it's working for some people, to do the same over the death of 3 people, I find I think it's been bad taste, and
I think it's
not something I'd
even
choose to
away
watch.
from the Diana situation. I just feel it's moved from what I really liked about it. I mean, I loved the lavish nature of it in the earlier series, but that political, learning about the prime ministers, learning about big events that happened in the past.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that, and that I just, where Blair pops up every night, it feels almost parody now.
yeah.
Even though you've still got that lush nature of it. I mean, there's a lot of money being put in, and there's certain scenes where Elizabeth Debicki, she just looks like her. She sat on the end of a boat, kicking her legs in exactly the same swimming costume, and it is uncanny,
Is time going backwards in part of
Yeah,
it? Because she
exactly.
does spend a lot of Tenet doing that as well.
She does, yeah. Anyway, I don't really want to just sit here and trash it, because a lot of people are getting a lot out of it. I know that maybe this is the thing. There's a younger audience that didn't live through these events that are now learning about them. I just question what they're learning, because, like you say, they will be thinking that things that happen in this show, and for example, Mohammed Al Fayed does not come out well here, and I know that there's lots of critics of Al Fayed, but he's almost pantomime villain in this, and the things that he's saying and what he's doing, and you might as well have start rubbing your hands together and doing a villainous cackle at times.
Lost a son.
Yeah,
in it.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think he died recently, and I do wonder that had he still been alive, whether I think he would have had a lot to say about it, because he had a lot to say about these events. There's something just not quite. There's another line that has been crossed. I just don't feel I want to watch the second part, because I'm also not really that interested in watching Prince William, seeing his future wife in that sort of slightly, because they're gonna do the see-through dress walking down a catwalk thing, aren't they? That really famous. Do you know about this? You're looking.
I don't know about this.
No, but there's a very famous shot. There was when they were at university, there was like a fashion show, and she has like a mesh dress on, with some underwear underneath, and obviously they're like 1920 at university. You're not thinking, oh, what am I going to be in 20 years' time?
She should never be queen.
Stop it. So yeah, they're going to recreate that, and I'm like, do I need to see that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I do.
I want to know about their interaction with the next door neighbours, but anyway,
only
moving on.
I only wanted to do 5 minutes on that, and there we go.
Yeah.
What have you got?
Loki.
Loki. I forgot about Loki.
Speaking of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to watch all the Marvel shows?
Yes.
Day one.
Totally.
Like, WandaVision was WandaVision lunchtime from work. I used to
That's
come
right.
down. We used to watch it, and then we used to spend the afternoon thinking about WandaVision. Disney have really fucked up by making even Marvel non-essential now. We talked about it with Star Wars, didn't we? What was the show we talked about recently?
Andor,
Asuka.
and then
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. That's it. Ahsoka.
Yeah. So Loki season 2. I wasn't as high on Loki season 1 as most people were, or as many people were, should we say? But it had a really interesting cliffhanger at the end of it. It's tied into what's happening in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's how it was called. Yeah, it's a real plus point for a film when 9 months later you can't remember what it's called, isn't it? When you're that invested in the product as I was. And so season 2 came back, and obviously there is the subplot here of this is a show that's based around the character Kang, and there is casting decisions which need to be made by Disney. Everyone will know, if you're interested in this, what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into it. But yeah, do some Googling if you wonder what I'm talking about. But I'm interested to see how they progress this. A lot of this show is really, really bollocks. There is so much timey-wimey stuff that they lean on.
But isn't that the whole point of the show?
But it's got no context. So it's just, if I just say to you, yeah, you need to get this now. Oh, okay, right, okay, that's great. So we need to make this thing. Why? I just do. And then that's an episode. There's so many characters being added on, and I've heard listeners of Cinemile, and they put it best when they said when they went from episode 1 to episode 2, they felt like they'd missed out an episode because there's stuff being referenced which just has no context whatsoever. And I'm like, what the fuck's this? Why am I having to Google like concepts and characters that you've clearly introduced, but I've no recollection of who you're talking about at all? It has episode 4 of it has a really, really wild swing towards the end of the episode. And fair play to them for trying something. But I didn't enjoy this season at all. I've heard people say it's the best thing that Marvel's done since Endgame, and I really wish it was for me. But for me, it is just sci-fi nonsense. And I've still not gone beyond episode 4, and I've had it episode 5 sat there for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, because I was going to ask you so I started episode 1, couldn't get into it at all. I find Loki difficult anyway.
Yeah.
Not because of the timey-wimey stuff, because I like that sort of thing, and I like my sci-fi, but I don't like the aesthetic. Weirdly, I don't like that sort of 1960s aesthetic, and what I really hate about it is it feels very claustrophobic. It's all sort of like, it's like they're in a big cave, isn't it? I feel like the walls and the ceilings are coming in on me in the place where they are. I don't know what it's called, where they're sort of doing all of the time.
I want to say the TVA.
That's
that
it.
might be
yes,
wrong.
Yes, that's it. No, that makes total sense.
Which
to me.
for sure I'm watching.
And it's
bit
quite
of a problem.
orangey, and it's sort of that's which I know a lot of people really love that, but I find it just really, really difficult sensorially to sort of get my head in. I need to be outside, and I need to be in, feel like I can breathe, and I don't feel I can breathe when I'm watching it. And also, I just wasn't that interested in what was happening. But on podcasts that we listened to, people were saying that the last episode was like fundamentally amazing, and people were crying and all of this sort of stuff. So I was hoping you were going to say, and even the last episode didn't. So, but you're not there yet.
I'm not there yet.
You may never get there.
I will. I will, because I need to for my end of year. Enough people who I respect have said this is a great season. I wish I'd seen it. So far, this is just sci-fi concept after sci-fi concept with absolutely nothing tying it together. So yeah, I'm really disappointed in it, and so you can stick your fucking $10.99 up your ass.
No sponsorship deals here.
I've got 2 weeks to watch it for our next thing. Actually, I think we've got another month at $7.99, however much it is. But yeah,
great. Watch everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna binge some films.
Are you ready for a crime drama? Alert, alert.
I've had nothing but Shetland for the past 2 weeks.
I'm very excited to talk about it.
Okay.
No, you haven't. I haven't spoken to you about Shetland.
But it's been...
I've put some stuff on Instagram about it.
It's been in the air.
What do you mean in the air?
It's been in the air of the house. I know you've written something about it.
I have written a full review.
Yeah.
And then I had to shorten the review down to get it on Instagram. But I did write an 892-word review at one point. Right, here we go. Are you ready? We'll get it out of the air.
So I just thought Shetland was kind of Rosemary and Thyme light.
No, it's really not.
Is this something that you've watched the previous seasons of?
Oh, you really haven't. You haven't read my review on Instagram, have you?
No.
So, March 2013 is when Shetland hits our screens, right? It's based on the books by Anne Cleves, who's from round here. She's always
Vera.
Vera, always popping into our local bookshop as well. So she does film festival.
I wish I had a local bookshop.
Yes, you do have a local bookshop. You've been in the local bookshop with me.
There are bookshops that are near me.
Stood outside.
I
the
could
local
not
bookshop.
say with good conscience I have a local bookshop.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
It would make
We have the same one.
It would be a lie.
So she's written these books, but they're not based around here. They are based.
Where are they based?
Funnily enough, they're based in Shetland or the Shetland Isles, because I've learned there's lots of isles. Yeah, all made up, and they call it Shetland. And the detective in her novels was a guy called Jimmy Perez, who in the TV show is played by Douglas Henschel, who, funnily enough, looks like he wants to be anywhere other than the Shetland Isles, which I always found quite funny. He's quite morose. So he is there until 2022, and then he decides he's going to leave. And you would think that would probably be the end of it. And I thought that was probably going to be the end of it. And I didn't really worry about it at the time or really think much more of it because...
I've never heard you mention this show. So if you're going to say worry about it, I'm not going to take that seriously.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't worry about it because I got to series 3 and I just stopped watching it. Now, I think that might have been a series where one of the main characters suffers a sexual assault. And I don't know whether that was the thing that made me go, oh, I might leave this alone for a little while. But anyway, whether that's coincidence or not, I kind of missed an episode and I missed another episode, and then another series came around, and then series 5 and series 6, and I just thought, you know what, I've missed so much of it, but I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed the setting. It's obviously incredibly picturesque, but also there's the savagery of being right on the sea, you know, the metamorphic rocks, but also the beautiful countries. You know, it's a really, really amazing place up there. And I really enjoyed the characters, you know, the people who were really into the culture of Shetland, but also it's quite funny, isn't it, how such a sparsely populated area has such a big crime problem. So didn't think about Shetland at all until I then saw that it was coming back for this new series, and it wasn't going to be just another bloke put into the role of the detective inspector. They were going to have a woman. Yeah, I mean, amazing. And the woman was Ashley Jensen, who I know mainly from Extras. So she was Maggie in Extras, but she's been in lots of other things as well. And they were bringing her back to Shetland. She was someone who was from Shetland, but she'd gone to work at the Met. So she's coming back to Shetland for reasons. And she was going to team up with the person who was with Douglas Henschel for all those time, which is Tosh. Her name is Mackintosh is her surname, so they call her Tosh. And she's played by Alison O'Donnell. And Tosh has kind of always been second fiddle because the main detective inspector's been there and she's been like the detective sergeant, but in this now she's the temporary detective inspector, and she teams up with Ashley Jensen's Ruth Calder, who has lots of history on the Shetland Isles. And then there's this storyline that goes around them that there's a witness to a murder who has come back to Shetland because, again, they are from the Shetland Isles as well. And there's all this history. There's history with Ruth's family. Her dad was the vicar. Her brother is now the vicar now that the dad's died. He's got married, but she's never came to the wedding. There's old lovers that she, you know, she's... And what I really like about her is she's no angel. You know, she's had a past on this island, but she's run away for a reason. Why she run away? Lots of people with lots of secrets. Within the Isles, people who seem perfectly normal and reasonable, but you know that there's something behind them. And I have just loved this. I've loved it for 2 reasons. A, I think the writing is really, really good. I couldn't see where it was going. It, you know, there was a plot point at the end of episode 1, which I did not see coming. And I watch these programs all the time, so I should be able to see that. I normally can guess what's happening by about, you know, half an hour in episode 1, knowing what's going to happen in episode 5. But the main thing for me is just having 2 women at the heart of the detecting. So yes, there are other people in the team, but, you know, so many detective shows have men at the heart of it, with women being the, oh, you know, Sandra, can you go and find me what's happening on this computer, or do you know what I mean? Like, they're always on the periphery of, oh well, there's the woman that does the computing, or there's the woman that's gonna do the. They're always forensics. You know, there's the forensic team that's a woman, or the pathologist. Let's make the pathologist a woman. That's a real trope within crime. How many female detective duos can you name?
Rosemary and Thyme.
Yes, very good.
Agatha Raisin and Agatha Raisin's friend. I don't know.
You've been reading my review.
No, I haven't.
They're both mentioned.
I'm not. It's you said Ashley Jensen's from Lots of Things, and I was like, I can't think of Lots of Things with her in.
Yeah, she
and
plays
I'm
Agatha Raisin.
scrolling through. She was also in the remake of DuckTales.
Oh, was it? Yeah. But yeah, like your Cagney and Lacey, Scott and Bailey.
I can't
Rosemary and
name
Thyme,
many
but
male detective things, but yeah.
Well, like Morse and Lewis, but even I'm not even talking about just two men. I'm talking about like there's often gender parity. So Mulder and Scully, for example, you know, that sort of thing. You can find lots of that, but just having two women. And then I started to think, I went right down a rabbit hole of like, where are your disabled detective? If you do get that level of representation, it's often an after. Let's be honest, it's often an afterthought, or it's often a let's do it here, but not necessarily as a main character. Here we've got two women who are at the heart of a detective show, and I just want to say I just really, really liked it. I like it for that, because they're not tropey. It's not oh, they're up against each other, or they're really competitive, or oh, Ashley Jensen's come in as the big I am, and they're just working together like normal women. And yeah, I really enjoy it. As if you like your crime dramas and maybe you haven't looked at Shetland before, I'd really, really give it a good old bash. It's got a really good old-fashioned whodunit in it, and the detecting characters are really, really good. I'm really enjoying it.
Do you have to have seen anything about them?
Not at all. And I think that's what's really good about this as well, is that, you know, I've not watched many series, and I could just pick up. I know that this guy does this and this guy does that, and even if I didn't know anything about Tosh as the, you know, temporary detective inspector, you would be able to work out with just her. Why are you laughing?
Because I just think of Tosh Lines from the Bill.
And I think it's a reference. I think it's a reference to Tosh. I mean, it has to be, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't have to be.
No,
because it'll be a reference to the source material, surely.
Yeah, but maybe that's where Anne Cleeve's got it from. Maybe next time I see her in town, I should say.
At our local bookshop.
Yes, at our local bookshop. Did you call her Macintosh, Tosh in brackets, because of Tosh Lines from the Bill?
But is Tosh Lines named Macintosh?
Oh, I don't know.
No, he's not. He's DJ DC Alfred Tosh Lines.
Oh, there we go. You learned something new. Anyway, Shetland, 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yes.
Good. I mean, I'm glad you found something that you like.
And if anyone wants to know more about Shetland, please see my review on my Instagram at Elaine G Writes.
Saturday night at the movies. Who cares what picture you see? When you're with your baby, last row in the balcony.
Before we get going on film, we just wanted to mention that we have new microphones, which we are very tempted to do the hello Mark Strong from the cinema thing all the time on.
That's not been probably on for 10 years.
Yeah, but it's when I have a microphone in my hand, which, you know, to be fair, is rare. But when I do have one, that's the first thing I want to do. So I'm glad that we've managed to avoid that on the podcast so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to mention that we recorded the TV part of the podcast last night, and now we're recording the film part. So you may hear a difference in the audio.
So much time has passed, we are no longer a member of Disney Plus.
Is that true?
Yeah, I cancelled it.
Have you cancelled it? Oh,
yeah.
right.
We've still got it for the month or until the beginning of next month, but yeah. So if there's anything you want to watch, you need to watch it now.
And so much time has passed that I have realised that you need to put the microphone nearer your mouth, because I went back to edit the TV section and realised that Mark was sounding absolutely beautiful and I sounded like I was in a different room.
I think better podcasts wouldn't even mention this, but
Well, I feel there's going to be a difference between the TV section and the film section. At least I hope there is. I hope I'm now using the microphone properly. And also I hope that it sounds better with our new mics because they were expensive.
films.
Films.
So I'm going to cover Bottoms,
Yes.
which has been out a
Good.
while.
For now,
but-
for now.
Great reference. Great
Thanks.
reference. So Bottoms, how much do you know about Bottoms?
Oh, very little. In my brain, it's like an independent film. It's women. I think it might be a queer story.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I know at the moment.
Yeah, so it's directed by Emma Siegelman, who did Shiva Baby, which was one of my favourite films of that year.
I remember that.
Not on my top 10 because I only saw it after, annoyingly. But yeah, definitely would have been like top 2 or 3 of that year when it came out. And this reunites her with Rachel Sennett, who you will know from Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I know exactly who you mean.
Ayo Adibri from, I've probably butchered that pronunciation, but from The Bear is also in this. And they star as a pair of high school friends who are at the bottom of the social circle. So they decide to set up a fight club in order to meet other girls. The thing that drew me to this is it's one of these films that was around and was going up the charts on Letterboxd for quite a while because it was released in America a couple of months before the UK. And I was looking at it, and it's a high school comedy, which I'm always a sucker for.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it was released, people were mentioning it was in the same vein as 10 Things I Hate About You. No bigger recommendation for me.
Absolutely.
Having seen it, I don't think 10 Things I Hate About You is necessarily the right reference. I think the main two characters are kind of in a 10 Things I Hate About You type film. However, every single person around them is in a more farcical comedy, something like Not Another Teen Movie. So, like, you get the American football team in this are all wearing their kits, including pads, all day, every day as they're walking around school.
So it's really heightened.
One of them is so out of control, he's in a cage at the back of class.
Right, okay.
Yeah, incredibly heightened, I think. And I will defend 10 Things I Hate. And I will defend Not Another Teen Movie. Not a lot of people like that film. Introduced us to Chris Evans. Captain America came from there. That's all I'll say.
It's very of its time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a queer movie, and I think that's very rare to have something sort of this farcical to be in that space.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be mentioned loads of different films that I'm missing, but it felt really refreshing in that way. Like, this is absolutely hilarious. Like, I was laughing out loud in the cinema, and it was sparsely populated, mostly females, which I think is probably a good thing because, I think as we've discussed before, high teen, low 20s girls aren't necessarily the most catered for in the
Absolutely.
in the film stakes. But yeah, laugh out loud funny. It took a little while to get to understand the tone of this, but once I was in. If I had a problem, I'd say that the ending was pretty rushed and just kind of came out of nowhere. It kind of seemed like they needed an ending and they went towards it. But by that time I was with them. I enjoyed these characters. I found them really funny. The teachers are funny. The friends are funny. It does take a really, really fun turn at high school and the politics within. But yeah,
right up your street.
yeah, absolutely. I really, really think this is worth checking out. If you've got any love for those sort of, it almost feels like a late 80s, like bawdy comedies. I mean, there's nothing of any like nudity in this as far as I remember, but it feels more in tone like one of those things that you get kind of on the second to top shelf of the video store.
I know what you mean, yeah.
There was one that we rented once called Evil Toons, which was like, just a group of girls fighting
some cartoons.
Fighting some cartoon monsters. I think David Carradine turns up at one point.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like really good recommendation. I think this might be in my top 10. It's hovering around there for the year. So we might speak about this again soon.
Well, we're definitely going to be speaking about the next film because I'm going to talk about Saltburn.
Yes.
And this is absolutely going to be in my top 10 of the year. And I think it's going to be really, really high. At the moment, I can't stop thinking about it, and I can't think of anything that's going to surpass it. But I haven't had a good look at the earlier films of the year, so it might be something that I'm completely missing that will take over this. But at the moment, it's all I can think about, and it's all I can like process in my mind. There are scenes in the film that I've thought about since I've seen it, and the themes as well of excess and obsession, that has also stayed with me. I'm not going to talk very much about what Saltburn's about because you've not seen it.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those films that we talk about a lot on the podcast. There are certain films where the less you, that's terrible grammar, but don't know anything about it. I was about to say the less you know about it, the better, but I think that's right. Without giving anything away, it is a working class lad goes to Oxbridge and finds himself with new friends who are posh, and plot occurs. That is, as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And the working class lad is Barry Keoghan, and the posh people include Jacob Elordi, who is going to be playing Elvis in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, which I'm really looking forward to. He's an Australian actor, brilliant accent.
Isn't that already out?
I don't think so. So you've also got people like Richard E. Grant and Rosamund Pike turning up, as well as other actors, which I'm not going to go into because actually when they turn up, it's a real delight. But that's your core two are Barry Keoghan and Jacob Elordi, as these two people from very different worlds, these two lads. And what I love about it is also it's set in the early 2000s. Emerald Fennell, who's the writer and director, and this is her follow-up to Promising Young Woman, she's talked about setting it at this time because it's a sort of a moderate fashion. Like, no one's going back to the early 2000s going, yeah, we're going to bring that back. But when you see it on the screen, you know exactly when you are. And I love that about that early 2000s.
I mean, it's been 20 years.
Atmosphere. I know.
It's like a film from the 80s being in the 60s. You know, like there is plenty of time. But yeah, you're quite right. Like, no one's harking back to the early 2000s apart from me and you. Which
well, that's true.
In most things we do.
Yeah, mostly. What I love about this film is that, and the reason it resonates with me so much, and it is, I have to say, it's been a divisive film.
Yes, so I understand.
Some people really don't like it. Empire gave it 3 stars, which I was like, what? And then other people have gone the way that I have, but very few. The reason I really like it is because I am from a working class background, and the themes that this film speaks to really resonates with me. There are scenes where Barry, playing Oliver Quick, Oliver has to go into spaces where he is other. He has addiction in his family, which is something I've had. He has, he doesn't have the frames of reference that these people have, and they all know how it works. They all know the code. They know the language. They know what to wear. And they all know each other.
Yeah.
And they have doors open to them. I have been in situations in my life where I've walked into a room and I have realised that the other people who were there were also, they were clever people. They've got through interviews. But they had so much more social capital than me. They expected to be there, whereas I was clinging on by my non-existent fingernails, thinking, how am I going to stay in this room? And also, I'm never going to get this job because the people over there are wearing suits from shops I've never heard of and just expect to be here. They don't have any nervousness about them. Even if they did have that, they're not showing it. The levels of confidence and the levels of, I just should be here, I'm expected to be here, have shone through. And I've also had situations where I've gone to, and this was in my early 20s, I went to interviews and at a big law firm, one big law firm in particular, wearing a cheap Marks and Spencer suit because I'd never worn a suit before. I didn't know what sort of suit I should be wearing. I was wearing the wrong tights. I was wearing the wrong shoes. I looked a little bit like a mini Margaret Thatcher because to me, I thought that's how you dressed to go to an interview.
Yeah.
I had no one to show me how you looked in that world because no one from my background was in that world.
Yeah.
And the feedback I got was that 50% of the partners loved me, 50% of the partners really didn't like me, and had I thought about how I presented myself. And that's what they were saying. They were saying, get a better suit. We can see your Marks and Spencer cheap suit, polyester suit, and we can see the shoes that no one's been wearing for the last 10 years. That is why this film speaks to me so much.
I'm glad I didn't work in law at any point.
Yeah. It's a lot better now.
Yes.
And also a lot of that will be a chip on my shoulder of me thinking, oh, these people have this background that I don't have. There will always be that. But I know what it is like to be in these spaces and not to have the same life experiences as other people.
Yeah, I mean, I've had less experience of this than you, I understand. I mean, I went for an interview at a very high fashion place last year where I did not fit in whatsoever, and it was like I felt it was very clear, and it was a chip on my shoulder about that. I understand where you're coming from. There has been times where I've been in rooms with people where I'm the only person who didn't go to Oxbridge, for example.
Yeah.
And, I grew up firmly in the middle class. So, let me say it clear. But it was made very clear that I was the odd one out of all this.
Yeah.
I was like, my house is... yeah. Look, I did well for myself. What's wrong with you?
Well, that's it. You start to sort of...
But when we're talking about societies
Yes.
and which schools you went to and
Yes.
and white tie things, I'm like, what is a white tie dinner? Because I've never come across this before. I understand this. So look, I'm going to see this on Thursday, providing I'm not going out for a pint with someone. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this because obviously huge.
so want you to see it.
I might save my thoughts for the top 10 of the year and see if it's...
It's going to be one way or another. I don't think you can come out of this feeling sort of like ambivalent about it. You're either going to love it...
3 stars Empire.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's a very interesting review, actually. It's Sophie Butcher who's written the review, and I agree with what she's saying. I don't think she is ambivalent. I think it's the star rating that she has... well thought through criticisms, and I enjoyed reading the review. I could see past those things probably because of all of this baggage that I'm bringing to it. The other thing is it goes to places that you won't imagine it goes to, and there are times in the cinema where you will sit there, and I'm really hoping this will happen with you will sit there and go, they're not doing that, oh, they are doing that, right, they're doing that.
Right, stop talking because I'm starting to I'm trying to piece this together in my mind, which is not helpful.
No, but there are directorial and cinematic things that occur that have stayed with me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Good. I mean, that's
good.
No,
Stop talking
because that happened in Promising Young Woman as well. it's.
But this is like, when you go to the cinema and you're like, I have been to see a film today. Whether you love it or hate it, you will walk out of that and go, I've been to the cinema, and that's what I loved about it. And the other thing...
Sorry, I'm not letting you get away with that. I go to cinema once a week. It's fine.
I know, but you really feel that this is a film that needs to be seen in a cinematic setting. And I say that and I'm going to have a go at Odeon. Went to the Odeon to see this. Audience, perfectly brilliant. Lights didn't go down properly.
Ooh.
And the screen was so dark. To the point where I was sitting there thinking, no one's going to turn these lights off. It was sort of like just the spotlights. So you could see your cup in front of you, which you shouldn't be able to see. I could see what the person at the end of the row was fully wearing. And I had to put my glasses to a point where I was blocking out the spotlights. No one went to tell. I was right in the middle of a row. No one went to say anything to anyone. But it is a testament to the film that even though sometimes it was so dark, I couldn't see what was happening. And I knew it wasn't that dark because I've seen the trailer. So when scenes from the trailer came on, I was like, yeah, this is the cinema projecting this really, really poorly. But also, you know, the light, obviously the lights being on, essentially. Even with all of that, and this is the testament to the film, I just sat there and watched it because I was enjoying it so much. I didn't want to get up and miss any bit of it, even though it wasn't the perfect viewing experience.
Sack off that earlier.
I know,
I have.
I'm going to.
Yeah, good. Well, I went to the cinema and I saw The Marvels.
Great.
And when I walked out, I said, I've been to the cinema and I've seen a bang average MCU film.
Okay.
So the follow-up to Captain Marvel, which was released in 2019, I want to say. Brie Larson comes back as Karen Danvers. Tiana Paris comes back, bringing on her role from WandaVision. And Iman Vellani brings back her Miss Marvel character from the TV show of the same name. Did you watch Miss Marvel?
Yes, I did. I don't think I finished it. Or
I
if I
thought
did
you did.
finish it, I can't really remember how it finished.
I thought you hadn't finished it, but then I remember there being something at the very end, like a musical reference
there's a
to
thing
something.
yes.
Which
I do remember now. Yeah, it was fine. I enjoyed her
Yes.
rather than the show itself. I thought she was brilliant.
Guess what my review is?
Is it something similar?
Yeah, so Iman Vellani steals this because she is such a great
Good.
character actress, such a great character and actress, should we say.
She's so likeable, isn't she?
They've really found like a gem in her. Brie Larson, I think, is fine. I get the feeling she's got one eye on doing other things, personally. Tiana Paris, I think, is really likeable. You get next to fuck all introduction to Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel if you haven't seen the TV shows.
Really?
If you thought that, like we discussed with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness,
That's right. Yeah.
like how lost you'd be if you hadn't seen WandaVision.
Yeah.
Times it by about 5 for
really?
this. Like, there is a little bit of an introduction for Miss Marvel. Tiana Paris just appears on screen. The bad guy. Do you know who the bad guy is in this?
I had it in my mind, and now it has gone again. Go on, tell me who it is.
Zoe Ashton.
Oh, Zoe Ashton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recently off Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah. We spotted her on Strictly Come Dancing with her lovely partner Tom Hiddleston.
Pushed to the front.
Yeah, right at the front. Beautiful dress.
Right into the camera.
Right into the camera. Well, you would, wouldn't you?
I mean, I think that the writers of this also forgot about her, or something's gone on.
She's so good.
She's such a great presence, and she has less than fuck all to do in this film.
What a waste.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It is a three-hander of people bouncing off each other. There's funny bits. There's bits where I'm like, it is incredibly diverse. I mean, out of the entire, I can think of 2 white males in this out of a cast of probably about 50 people. One of which is the dad from Billy Elliot.
Oh, really? The Scottish fella?
Yeah. And the other one is the biker boyfriend from Sex Education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that I know exactly who you mean with those descriptions.
Yeah, see? Yeah. We've lived together far too long. I was going through the motions. This was like an average to below average MCU movie. And then came the final 5 minutes. There is a pre-credit sequence and a mid-credit sequence, both of which have got me excited for future developments in the MCU in a way that none of the other things really have since Endgame. I don't know if you've been spoiled on them at all.
No, I haven't.
I'd avoid spoilers, and you might just want to fast forward to the end.
Okay.
But there is some really, really interesting things. Now, I've heard people criticize them, and I can understand that. But yeah, it got me.
It sets things up for
Yes, it sets things up
new.
for future films, and as opposed to many of the previous post-credits things, I genuinely believe these will happen because I think they are big developments that they can't really ignore. Yeah, it's all right. I think is probably the best I can say, but it leads me to believe that there'll be something coming up that makes me quite excited.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good because today I was listening to The Rest is Entertainment, which is a new podcast by Marina Hyde and Richard Osman, and it's their second episode. What are you going to say?
Like,
you look
fucking
like
Richard Osman gets on everything, doesn't he?
I know.
Coming
And
on
I
our
know
podcast backs. I mean,
they don't need me to talk about it, but what
we probably need is your book to sell more than him, and
yeah,
then
that's
and then that'll get
well,
him.
hey, I'll be very happy if that happens. I don't think
Can
it
I
will.
retire if that happens?
Yeah, I think we'll all be retiring.
Yeah.
But in the second episode, they talk in a lot of insightful detail about superhero films and Marvel and what is happening with that universe. And it's very witty and it's very dry, but obviously it's very much of a negative take on what's happening because things are going down for the films. And Richard Osman in particular talks about how he feels that there should be more of a gap between the different films.
Yeah.
So it's the reason I'm mentioning it is because I think the general discourse is around, things not going well with Marvel. And it's nice to hear you say something has happened in this film that makes me not necessarily feel more positive towards the Marvel universe, but makes you interested in what is coming next, rather than someone like me who will not go and see this film, probably won't watch it on the telly, and has no interest. My interest is totally gone in this.
Okay. So, yeah, I think the world of the MCU has been contracting, and it had to since Endgame because they couldn't just carry on adding more characters. This is the first time I have felt that the world is expanding again and they are moving forward with something that I am actually interested in, as opposed to like the post-credits thing to Thor, which was just
What, the most recent Thor?
Yeah, have you seen that?
No.
Okay.
I've just gone with it, I think, now.
It was something that just didn't interest me at all. But yeah. So yeah, at least I'm clinging on to hope that something's going to go right for this. I mean, obviously, this film has made a huge loss.
And I'm sad. I'm sad for the conversations around the film because it's a woman who's directing, is women in the cast, as you say, it's a diverse cast, and there's just been some real bollocks that's come out about it, including people from the studios themselves saying things like, "Oh, there wasn't anyone on set to supervise her." Like, they'd never say that about a male director.
No, it's
that no one would be saying, "Oh, there wasn't anyone on board to supervise Mr. Spielberg, so well, next time we'll make sure someone's there watching him, make sure he's doing his job properly." I don't even want to go into it because it's just so blooming depressing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm sad that it's been used as a stick to beat, the people who have produced the film.
Yeah, and it feels to me like this suffers from Marvelitis rather than problems with any of the banner filmmakers.
Absolutely.
It didn't have anything to do right up until the last 10 minutes. And that's a problem. We're done.
We're finished with the new microphones.
So,
hello.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh God. So I think we're back soon. I've got one eye on the top 10 lists of the year.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know whether we'll be doing anything before then. Depends if anything takes our fancy, I guess.
Comes up.
Have you always seen Doctor Who?
Yes, I have. I watched the first episode of the new. It's a three-parter, isn't it, with David Tennant?
I don't know.
Catherine Tate. So anyway, I watched the first one, which is like the he's back with her.
Yeah.
And then I attempted to watch the second episode, but I was also putting together a flatpack table, which I said to myself, this will probably take me an hour.
I don't want to
follow
talk
the
about this
instructions,
table. I think we've spoken enough about this table.
and I'll put everything on the floor. I had all the bits on the floor, put it all in order, and I thought, about an hour, that'll be perfect. And I'll watch Doctor Who in the background.
I'm just going to read my magazine.
2 hours later, I was only on step 3. I had done something to a nail that I still can't quite get over. I'd burnt myself because I'd used one of those power tools that I probably wasn't meant to use.
That's
and
correct.
then in the end, I had hammered something into the table when you're not meant to use a hammer. And then I nearly had a breakdown. And then I told you that I needed to put it in the corner of the living room and step away from it. And I've done that now for the last 24 hours. And you were encouraging me, A, not to look at it, and B, not to think about it because it's causing me so much distress. And I'm sure at some point you're going to work out what I've done wrong with it. Take it all apart again if you can, because of the amount of hammering and power tools that you're not meant to use that I have used on it. And then maybe we'll just put it in the bin and buy another one.
I was going to say, I'm just going to take it to the tip. I think this might be...
So, yes, Mark, I've watched the first episode. I attempted to watch the second. I'll probably go back to it. And I do want to watch the third. I want to see I want to say transition, but it's not transition. It's regeneration, isn't it? I want to see the regeneration.
Yes.
And I'm interested in Russell T Davies coming back and Ncuti Gatwa. And the new companion, who I don't know, but I think she was in one of the soaps. You're
know.
looking blank at me.
I don't
You're
know.
still thinking about the flatpack.
I've not watched any Doctor Who since the first few Peter Capaldi's.
Are you going to go back to it?
I mean, go back to it. I'm never going to go back and watch the Peter Capaldi's.
No, but
I
yeah,
just didn't
are
really
you
enjoy
coming
that,
back to the show? Are you going to watch these?
Yeah, I think I might.
interim
I think I might. I've
episodes?
just been busy the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might watch it, and then I'll see.
Yeah.
I want to watch it because I feel like it's such a cultural...
Yeah, it's a moment, isn't it?
and
Every
Russell T
regeneration.
Davies
Yeah.
and things like that. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
You go.
Oh, me. Deep intake of breath from both of us. Yeah. Just to say thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us at The Honeymoon Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can subscribe, rate and review us anywhere that you get podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, which I understand is not going to be around for much longer, and Spotify.
Oh my God.
I'm really not good at this bit. It's terrible. You know what that I like about it though? You know, like some people have like a pre-recorded bit that they put at the end of each podcast.
Yeah.
I like that our listeners know that this is absolutely not pre-recorded, that this is painful every single time we have to get to this bit.
A new level of shambolic. Why don't you mention Stitcher that went out of business a couple of years ago?
I might, or Blogger.
Listen to us on MySpace.
Lovely. Perfect.
Great. We'll see you
That's
next
where we
time.
are. Bye.